Yes, hi, welcome back to NM Classroom. And very happy news, you are just a mile close ahead to the end of the chapter. Why we should manage workplace health and safety. We already discussed first two units, morals and money, and regulating health and safety. We move on to the last unit. The third unit of this element is none other than who does what in organizations. The title itself, it's very clear. In an organization, who all are the people, who all are the different departments, and what are their duties and responsibilities, and what they actually perform in the organization. So of course, obviously we see that employer is there, and employee is there, directors and senior managers, middle managers and supervisors, and joint occupier of premises, and contractors. So out of these 5 or 6 categories we'll be dealing this unit. Okay, so this unit is completely about the various roles and responsibilities of these different segments. What are the responsibilities of employer? What are the health and safety responsibilities of directors and senior managers, and middle managers and supervisors, and then premise occupier responsibilities and its significance and importance, and finally the contractors. Okay, so we move on to the first classification is employer. We already dealt in our last unit very clearly what are the responsibilities of employer according to C155 and R164. Keep reminding that the same portion. And of course, employer is liable to give health and safety arrangements to all the workers. This can be their own workers and some other workers. They may have some contractors, contract workers, visitors would come to the organization, so they should look after their safety also, and some public people, members of public. Okay, so who all are connected with the employer? It is employer responsibility to look after their safety. So in short, employer is a person, might be a person or organization, but he is a legal entity. If it's not a person, it will be a legal entity. Even if it's a person, this is also a legal entity. So employer employs the people, and so that this term can be called as employer. Okay, so that first employer responsibility we already dealt with completely in the last unit. And we move on to the next category of people is directors and senior managers. Here we have to understand some core concepts. Okay, see, it is not mandatory to looking for all the points and getting that into the memory. No, just understand why the following responsibilities are coming under the head of directors. That is the most important. See, as a director's responsibility, or when we talk about senior management, our view should comes to an eagle point, like having an great view, as a macro view about the organization. See, definitely directors play the role of setting policy, right? You got it, because policy is the blueprint of any organization. Setting health and safety policy, that is not the job of the worker or the middle managers. That is the work of the top management, can be called as directors and senior managers. And they setting goals and objectives and health and safety targets. This is also the responsibilities of directors and senior managers. And we could say that providing allocation of resources. Yes, there are different allocations, right? That the funding allocation, the different managerial allocation, role allocation, designing and assigning the jobs and responsibilities to all levels of organization, and conducting the performance review, health and safety performance review on an annual basis. Of course, conducting review on monthly, weekly basis is not the responsibility of the top management, but conducting a review, performance review annually is the responsibility, and the safety auditing and all these stuffs. Okay, so that what to say, that appointing the competent persons and providing sufficient funding, and all these can be called, and engaging the contractors. okay, getting connected with the contractor and signing with the contractor, and all these can be termed as the top management, that is called directors or senior managers responsibilities. Got it? So in short, while we read on the scenario, we should understand whether it is the directors or senior managers responsibility or is the middle managers responsibility. See, how can we distinguish between? See, directors and senior managers never be into the day-to-day operations, will be involved. They will occasionally come and involving in some day-to-day operations as a part of demonstrating their health and safety commitment. But at the same time, they will never frequently interfere the day-to-day operations. So the day-to-day operations are involved by middle managers. Middle managers are looking for the day-to-day operations of the business, the health and safety management system. So when we think about the day-to-day operations, they are involved, middle managers and senior managers involved. They will be only responsible for their line of areas under their control. What are the segment or the departments are under their control, they will be responsible for that. But they are not responsible for beyond. So this is called the role of the middle management. So how they are responsible for the day-to-day operation? Say for use of different safety equipment, providing good supervision, adequate supervision, providing PPE, providing training, providing worker consultation, accident reporting, and implementing, carry out the risk assessment operations, and make out the safe working procedures. See, this is all about the doing and action oriented stage. In short, I'll give you a very simple technique that when you think about senior management or director's responsibility, that will be almost all the responsibility will be in a planning stage. Okay. But when it comes to middle management, what they planned, what the top management planned will be implemented into the action by the middle management. So you could say that provide funding, sufficient funding is the director's responsibility, right? But implementing some actions with the use of these funding will be the middle manager's responsibility. And having a template for the risk assessment, of course, the senior management may interfere, but carry outing the risk assessment can be with the help of middle managers, right? So appointing the most competent staff can be by the top management, but carrying out the operations and performance and monitoring this person will be supervisor or middle managers. In short, what are the company's stated aims and objectives will be accompanied by the middle managers and supervisors good well effort. Got it? So we could learn employers' responsibility, directors and senior managers' responsibility, and middle managers and supervisors' responsibility. And we move on to the next segment is called joint occupier of premise. You might notice that joint occupier of premise. Who is joint occupier of premise? It's very simple. When two or more organizations shared the same premise for their business concern, this premise can be called as joint occupier of premise. See, if there is a commercial building, your office in a commercial building, there are different concerns, different organizations are in and around in the same building. That building can be occupied jointly. Of course, when a building occupied jointly, they will have a certain hazards and risk. Of course, my organization hazards will be creating more damage and harm and interference of the work to your organization. Maybe your organization hazards can be affecting us. So there is a high chance of having conflict. But we have to get rid of all this conflict, but with consultation and cooperation. So how do we consult? We should form a consulting committee, building management consulting committee. Suppose in a multi-story building, there are 10 different business organizations are occupied at a stretch in a building. So they can of course form a building committee organization, safety of the building committee, like we can form a committee. In that committee that we can discuss on what are the common issues that is faced by each organizations in a very polite and gentle way. So while we discussing, while we consulting with other representative of the organization, we'll be sitting together and we'll be thinking about and we'll be driving the solutions. So definitely there are some common issues, right? As far as safety is concerned, if there is fire occurred, that the whole building organizations, it will be affected. If there is a security threat or terror attack or traffic issues like parking issues and all these can be, we can make the solutions. We can sit together and we can consult each other and we'll have a good cooperation. So this joint occupier of premise responsibilities will be undertaken, right? So we have dealt with 4. That means directors, employers, directors and senior managers, middle managers and supervisors, and joint occupier of premise. Then I am moving to the most important area of this unit. Almost all the NIBOSH examination, they keep on asking this area is none other than the responsibilities of contractors. So who is a contractor? When I say that contractor as a specific term, what comes to your mind? Yes, a contractor is coming to your mind, isn't it? Very simple terms. Let us leave all the corporate concerns. Yes, you just gonna build a own home, own house. So you give your work to a contractor, isn't it? So you will be giving the funding, sufficient funding. And will you take off? No. You will be supervising, planning, monitoring, managing, coordinating, right? So here, the contractor and a client responsibilities are shared responsibility in terms of safety. When a client inviting a contractor to perform a specific task, in a client working area, there are already having client workers, right? So when a contractor comes, then it should not affect the client workers, isn't it? And the contractor workers should not affect the client workers, and client workers should not affect the contract workers. So the responsibility is mutually shared. And it may not have only one contractor, they may have subcontractors will be there. So it is the responsibilities are completely shared and it should be highly coordinated. So this question should be, you can expect in your NIBOSH examination, is that how a client how a client select his contractor. See, according to the scenario, you will be given a scenario. In that scenario, they will have a specific task to be done. So that the management of ABC Oil Company, suppose the management of ABC Oil Company is invited a contractor and they'll be talking something about the contractor. Okay, so based on the given information, that you will have to specify what are the things to be considered before selecting a contractor. See, this is a multi-million project, so you are the project engineer or project coordinator, senior project coordinator. You have to undertake this project. So you have to get a good contractor for this program, especially for this project. How would you select the contractor? It's quite simple, right? If a small function gonna occur in your home, of course that you will be thinking several times from where I should buy the vegetables and whom should I contact for the food preparation and how should I make the arrangements, right? Many times we are thinking about the same, like when you are selecting a contractor. Yes, of course, you will be thinking many times. So what are the points to be noticed when you are thinking about or selecting a contractor? Before you select a contractor, once you selected, then you don't have any option. Till you select, you have the option to select. You have many options to select the best contractor with affordable price, with your expertise and your competence. So, hi dear friend, what are the points to be considered while selecting a contractor? The first point is that we should check their name and their previous and present clients, isn't it? Yes, we'll meet some contractors and we'll be asking, okay, what about your credibility, what about your goodwill, what is your name, like, you know, big contractor names, and let us we would like to see some, you know, your previous works and present works and who are your clients. So we'll be getting connected to their clients and what about them, how are they good in this work. So based on the feedback we received, definitely we'll be selecting the contractor. If the feedback is very negative, then we'll not go for that, isn't it? Yes, and we'll be checking the accident history. According to the safety point of view, this is the most important point. If the number of accidents is highly increased by this contractor, then we'll never go for that. Okay, but at the same time, if the accidents are very much reduced and accident-free work zones, and they had created many working hours without accident, of course, we'll just have a spot on them, isn't it? And yes, we can look on the membership or certifications or accreditation by professional authorities. Suppose are they ISO 45001 accredited, or do they follow any occupational health and safety management system by ILO or ISO, something like. If they follow the good standards, then yes, we'll have another spot to them, right? And yes, we should check the enforcement actions or enforcement notices of the contractors. May have some contractors will be hiding these information, so we should catch on it that. Okay, if any enforcement actions faced by the contractor, so they are connected with us and they start their project, so maybe our project will be getting delayed and it will be, you know, it will be banned and prohibited maybe in future. So we'll be, you know, we have to think about, we should be very much concerned and careful about whether do they have any enforcement actions. In the last unit we have already dealt this issue, how an enforcement action and notices comes. Because of this, they've clearly violated health and safety legal standards. That's how enforcement actions and enforcement notices occurred, isn't it? So if they have any enforcement notice and actions, then we'll never go for that way, isn't it? Okay, then we could check their health and safety policy document. We can ask for their copy of the health and safety policy. So why should we ask this policy document? Because while just have a glance through the safety policy clearly speaks about the commitment and leadership of this organization demonstrating health and safety management system. So if they have a good health and safety policy, yes, okay, that's also a very good point. If they don't have, then we don't need to seek out them, right? And the next point, we could say that the test of plant and equipment, whether their equipment and machineries are adequately tested and rated by CE mark or kind of different kind of quality checks, and whether all these equipments and machineries are being tested by the relevant authority or not. And obviously we'll check their training records to their staff, whether they have good training and the staffs are highly trained and competent to perform our work, or that the named foremen are given or not. So we'll be checking all these records. And the final point, we could say that resources, right? Do they have sufficient, adequate, appropriate resources in order to complete our project on time? This is the most important point. We have signed a contract, and once signed the contract and one work started, then we observe that it's getting delayed because of lack of resources. They are not in a position to cater this big deal. So only then after selection of contractor we come to know this case, it will be very much issue. So what we have to, we should be very proactive in nature, right? Before we selecting the contractor, we should identifying, analyzing and recognizing all these points. And once you fill, you take time, no problem. As an organization, of course, as an project chief coordinator, you take time. You get the quotations, and you get a ground study, and you just connect with the people, go and meet and chat and discuss and interview and taking reviews. And by which all these means, you find that it's quite fine. It's very significant to your organization. Yes, yeah, let's move on. And once you sign the contract, with the contractor. Then we move on to, we have to manage the contractor. Okay, we have given the advance, okay, 50% advance before work, and we left out the workplace. Then nothing gonna happen. Even if the contractor is supreme extraordinary, the work will not be imperfect. But we have to manage the contractor. So how do we manage the contractor? In order to manage the contractor, there are different stages. Okay, so managing a contractor, how a contractor will be managed by a client. See, if a work performed like a tank or a confined space, it's a most risky work, and a confined space, toxic gas, that plant to be cleaned. So we have given this work to the contractor. How do we manage? Before we start the work, we should sit together. With the contractor, we are sitting together, and we will be exchanging our information. What kind of information? As far as you are the client, you will be well known about the hazards and risk of your surroundings and your working place, isn't it? Yes. So these hazards and risks should be communicated to the contractor, because contractor is competent, okay, but contractor is competent, I am admitted, okay, but the contractor is not familiar in your workplace. You only know your workplace, right? So you exchange all the information about the workplace and the particular task and the area, and the contractor also should exchange his information about this particular work. The hazards and risks should be properly communicated. And once the communication is over, they should develop a pre-risk assessment, a pre-work risk assessment. They should identifying hazard and assessing the risk that hazard generate, and they find the ways to eliminate or controlling the acceptable level, risk to an acceptable level. So we are creating a risk assessment, formal risk assessment report in the planning stage itself. And we should, before we commence to the work, we have to set up a safe working method. This can be called as method statement. Before we start work, we create a method statement in order to complete the work as a safe system of work. For each and every work, we'll be creating good system, isn't it? So once the system, method statement and risk assessment is getting ready, then we move on to the work. Then during the work, that the client should coordinate the work of the contractor. What is meant by coordination? Coordination means just be in it. The client should be involved in the work for arranging the necessary arrangements and coordinating the activities in between the contractor and the client. So as a part of the client, they should have a coordinator. It can be a dependent or independent coordinator. The coordinator will come to know that where are the missing gaps, so that he can be cleared out. Just by planning stage itself, okay, you start doing your work, then the work will not be in a much progressive way. But at the same time, by knowing all these information as a knowledge to this coordinator, and the coordinator is coming and checking and all these works, then it will be fine, isn't it? And obviously, surely, certainly, this work should be managed and monitored. So what is meant by management? Yeah, managing the people, managing the contract workers, managing the hazards, managing the risk, managing the control measures. How do we manage? Yeah, we can manage by whether we can check that track record, roll call, attendance, signing in and signing out procedures, whether all the contract workers are coming or not, and are they work on full time as we prescribed, are they competent enough? Of course, we can check it. Have they given the named foreman? While we signing the contract, the contractor have declared that our workers are highly international level, highly qualified. So we should check their competency, whether the named foreman and laborers or trained staffs have come to that, and whether all these workers got enough training or not. We can manage. During managing the contractor, we can check whether all the high risk activities are controlled. High risk activities. What are the high risk activities? It can be confined space, work on live electrical machine, and work at height. This many high risk activities are there. So our underground utilities, excavation. So all these high risk activities are controlled before, during and after the work, and make sure that all these works have been controlled by the contractor. So these all are the steps to be done in managing. And just I pointed out just 4 points, but these 4 points are not limited. Understand what my class is not limited. The scenario is that the matter, right? So at least I hope that you have got an idea about how to manage a contractor. So from the given scenario, that when you observe the scenario, you will tend to see all these points in the scenario, and maybe some more points could be seen. Like suppose if I am saying that okay, that confined tank, that the toxic tank being that confined toxic tank being given contract, that the contractors are doing cleaning this work. Okay, that's fine. Contract workers are cleaning this confined tank. Okay, so in the scenario, given scenario, suppose they have given there is an independent coordinator is there, and he is actively monitoring all this work, and he is speaking to the clients and all. So you can write all these points as the part of the managing the contractor, right? So, and he also reporting the relevant information to the relevant authority of the client, and he is working as an actors and a contractor coordinator work. So out of this person point of view, we can raise our answers. But before that, we should have a clear understanding of that, how a contractor managed by a client. That planning, coordination, managing and monitoring stages. So hey friend, this is your happy news that our first element has been completed successfully. So in short, in this unit, you have gone through who and what. Who all are in organization, and what are their responsibilities. Got it? And employer is there, directors and senior managers are there, middle managers and supervisors, joint occupier of premise and contractors, and there are many more people are also there, right? You will be thinking that only these much people in the organization. No, there are vulnerable people like pregnant lady, young workers, lone workers are there. There are safety specialists are there. That will be coming and discussing the later units. But according to the syllabus given by NIBOSH, we are simply following the whole syllabus, because our ultimate aim is to pass the examination, gain the certification, right? And also improving our health and safety standards and knowledge. So once again, that will when we wind up this program, when we wind up this first element, I hope and I truly wish that you have gained a fundamental understanding of the first element completely. And I strongly recommend to you that you can read out the textbook, and also you just go through all these study notes fine. So this will be fine to pass your examination, and I can no longer wait to see you that on the second element. Till then, bye. Thank you.